The Boston Bruins were putting more attention into roughing things up in game 4, while the Florida Panthers were more focused on playing their style of hockey, and it proved in their 3-2 comeback win in Boston.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, May 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on X at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can find our shows anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube, and grateful to be back here on another post-game edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast to break down this 3-2 win for the Florida Panthers over the Boston Bruins, where it's crazy. Even though we didn't have a pregame show in between games 3 and 4 because of the weekend with everything with Locked On, yeah, it's your team every day, Monday through Friday, but had the Friday post-game show and immediately going into Sunday. But a lot happened in between with the fans going up against each other, media going up against each other in regard to Brad Marchand and being out for this game after what looked to be Sam Bennett sucker punching him back in game 3. But no Marchand tonight, and the focus for the Boston Bruins was to rough it up. Trent Frederick was talking about going after the best players. They tried early. The Florida Panthers were as composed as can be, played their style of game even, and didn't lose it after going down 2-0 and come back 3 unanswered goals have been a thing in this series, and they come out with the 3-2 regulation win after scoring 2 third-period goals. And here to break down this 3-2 regulation win to take a 3-1 series lead for the Panthers, he is Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta. Welcome back, my friend. Great to have you here on another victory for the Cats.
Oh, it's been really fun, Armando. Okay, I've got here in the background Barkov's goal here, the third goal of the game-winning goal, and just seeing the dejection of the Boston fans at it's you know what? Let's not call it TD Garden anymore. Let's call it like Amarant Garden, maybe something like that. Miami Garden. I don't know. The Panthers have done really well there since, well, way back since 1996 when it was called the Fleet Center. So it seems to be like a second home for the Panthers. It's Sunrise North.
5-1 record for the Florida Panthers in the TD Garden since last postseason, and no conversation now about that sweep in the regular season for the Bruins, right? None. But it's crazy because, I mean, for the Panthers, I mean, they were getting some breakaway chances too. I mean, a great stretch by Aaron Ekblad. Vladimir Tarasenko had a great chance on Jeremy Swayman. There was a puck that was bobbled up in the air where I believe it was Lori who grabbed the puck and almost knocked it into his own net. And it's funny because when the Boston Bruins, you see a quick goal on a power play for their first one, and then the second one was off a forecheck. Kulikov had an errant pass out of the zone. The Boston Bruins get it quickly back and 2-0. But you see that the valuable chances that the Panthers had, even in that first period, through each of the intermissions. TNT was even talking about how the Panthers are coming in waves, how if you don't stop them on the outside, that they're eventually gonna get you to bite. And I spoke about the antics. Maroon poking at Bennett to try to provoke something, but he's not biting. Jeremy Swayman trying to give Matthew Tkachuk a whack and then using his glove to say, come here. And it's crazy. Once again, the Florida Panthers were more focused on trying to play their identity of hockey and responding, and Maurice having just saying it's just a collision. Montour, even before the game in his pregame interview with Jackie Redmond, saying, "Oh, we just move on. It's just another hockey game. We know that they're going to be coming. We got to respond." I mean, that is as calm as a Panthers team that I've seen. And there was something in that broadcast too, where Paul Maurice tells himself something about when it comes to barking at officials, because he knows that if he does it, it is encouraging the players to do so. So there's also that thing when it comes to Sam Bennett being the target and having it on his back, but still the Florida Panthers, they didn't bite into anything.
There was a point during the second period when the Panthers were still down, and they were talking to Paul Maurice mid-game, and they were basically asking him, what's the sentiment on the bench? What are guys saying on the bench? How's the mood at that moment? And Paul Maurice, with no panic in his voice, no worries, is like, no, we got a good mood going on. Where nobody's yelling, nobody's frustrated right now. He felt good about the Panthers game. And that was the thing that was permeating throughout the broadcast that the analysts were looking at as well. You talked about the Panthers coming in waves. The Panthers, as much as the Bruins were trying to get under their skin, kept going with their game because they know that's their winning formula. And you saw it. You saw it where they were down 2-0, but at the same time, I mean, you look at the shots throughout the 14-5 in the first period, and it was like 26-15 after the second period. The Panthers were still peppering shots at Swayman. He was really the only difference. If he wasn't there, they'd said it along. This might be a 2-2 game after the first period if it wasn't for Swayman and his antics and his basically just standing on his head at some points, because the Panthers got a lot of great looks in that first period, and it very well could have been worse than a 3-2 loss for Boston at this point. So the Panthers, the way that they answered, the way that they didn't allow Boston to dictate any sort of portion of the game. I posted on X, whatever, as the game started, the Bruins, all they have is goonery. That's all they've got left in them. And that's what happened during the game. And then once the Panthers got their first goal, you saw the goonery start going down a bit because the Bruins are saying, "Oh no, these guys are focused. They're not taking the bait." And then the second goal, full of controversy. We'll get to that, I'm assuming at some point. But then the third goal, Barkov weaving right through with probably his most iconic goal in his career at this point, as far as
in the playoffs at least.
Concerned. And so then there's no room left for goonery for the Boston Bruins once the game is tied. Once they were down by 1, it just seemed like that as well. And the Panthers definitely got into their heads because they were making dumb mistakes, dumb icings, dumb penalties, things that were completely preventable, and it played right into the Panthers' hands.
Yeah, preventable. I mean, you think about also the interference that was away from the play when Matthew Tkachuk was going up the left wing wall on OEL, and then Morgan Geekie bumping into Sergei Bobrovsky, not knowing where he was on the ice too. That's another thing. It was more than just the goal that had a lot of controversy too. When it comes to that, so that's another for the Bruins. I mean, it was more than just that review. It was them shooting themselves in the puck, in the foot, excuse me. And also, Panthers were without Sam Reinhart for a good majority of this game after bleeding and the blood getting around Swayman's crease. Kyle Ocho was taking a few shifts on power play too, and even on Barkov's wing, who he was the one who tapped it back to Barkov in the first place as the trailer too. So also for the Panthers, I mean, just still able to roll 4 lines, even if you didn't get all the even if you didn't have your full complementary of guys with you. I mean, not every power play
Rodriguez up on the first unit in the power play.
Yep. Yeah, and also Erod had a great game too for him. 5 shots on goal for him. The Boston University Terrier back in a place that he spent a little bit of time to, a little bit of catch between him and Lundell right before that sharp angle shot goal for the first one of the game to cut it to 2. I mean the Panthers, you knew that 2-0 wasn't indicative of this of the game. I mean, if you took those goals away and there was no graphic up, you would not for a chance think that the Florida Panthers were down in this game. And that's really the thing I took away from this one too. It's just pure domination in their own zone. I mean, yeah, the Panthers D were up, which allowed a few of those odd man rushes. If you're going to allow if you're going to allow anyone to beat you, you're going to allow a reconfigured line of Dan Heinen, who was in for Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, and Trent Frederick. That was really the line that was really the most effective for the Boston Bruins tonight, and that's not usually a line that's together. So, I mean, Pasternak scored his first of the series, and even that's still not enough. He can't do it on his own too. So that's another takeaway for that. So that the moment that Pasta does get on the board, it's still not enough for the Boston Bruins. And that's a discussion about depth that we could definitely have later. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about our 3 stars of the game and the moment when we thought this game was lost, and have a good conversation about possibly my moment for sure. But we're going to discuss that more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you the time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is to help you talk through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers, so in just a few quick clicks, you can find your lowest price. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Even worse, it may not come with you if you leave your job. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonHL or click on the link in the description to get your free insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonNHL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all the shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Back on this Monday, May 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 3-2 comeback win over the Boston Bruins from the TD Garden to take both matchups in Boston to come back with a 3-1 series lead. Here, once again, breaking it down with me is Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta. So, Francisco, the 3 stars of the game for me, for the Cats. Number 1 has to be Alexander Barkov for me. Once again, is 8 points in 4 games for the captain here in the first in this part of the series, and just has been the difference maker. It's crazy because you think about for the Panthers and how this time last year when they were about to win in 5 games from the Toronto Maple Leafs, it was talking about all about Sergei Bobrovsky this time last year, but the Panthers structure has been really taking away those shots from Bob, that it's not really about the timely saves. It's about the timely saves, not the amount of saves. And even Darren Pang was emphasizing that. Number 2 for me is Evan Rodriguez. Like you said, stepped up on the top power play unit, was really getting the play going, battling up, using his speed. And getting multiple shots on net. And Anton Lundell is my third one, getting that sharp angle shot. There's a thing with Anton Lundell and sharp angle shots. I know it's not the Ottawa Senators that he's playing every day, because he's had two iconic goals from a sharp angle, and Jeremy Swayman was also screened there. So just learning how to thread the needle. I know Alexander Barkov likes darts, but maybe he might learn a little bit from his friend, his fellow countrymen. So Lundell is my third star there. But how about you? Who are your 3 stars of the game for the Florida Panthers in this 3-2 regulation win?
So I had Barkov already. I mean, we already talked about the goal and overall his play, and throughout the broadcast, you could hear them praising him once again, saying he's one of the most underrated players and the best 2-way center that is in the game right now, arguably for sure. I also had Anton Lundell. He always seems to be able to thread the needle. He always seems to find the narrowest of spaces to either make a shot or make a good pass. And he was very noticeable today in a good way. And then, of course, Bob. So Sergei Bobrovsky, through that first half of the game, let's say, kept the Panthers in this game. And he made some very, very great saves. I posted one of his big saves during that second period. And I made the note that he's kept them in this game and kept this game from getting away from the Panthers just enough so that hopefully his teammates can come back and support him with some actual goal support. And eventually they did. But the Bruins had a lot of great chances, and this game could have been a lot different had they buried a third goal, and it was 3-0 down. So suddenly you got to make a huge comeback from 3-0, two goal leads, most dangerous lead in hockey, as everyone knows. So that's very, very surmountable, and the Panthers were able to get back in this game solely because Sergei Bobrovsky was able to keep it together long enough for them to keep it together and get back into the game eventually. And then the final 30 seconds, Ekblad gets called on interference. They got to go on the penalty kill. Benefit, no icing. You can kind of shoot the puck wherever. But they kept it together. I think there was maybe one or two shots that kind of found their way towards Bob, and they were able to lock it down and finish off the Bruins in this one. And so definitely Bobrovsky. So those are my 3 stars.
Yeah, and Barkov with the great clear out the zone at the end to prevent them from getting any zone time at the end. I mean, when you're stopping them from getting any type of cycle, you're doing some great things in this game. But the moment where we thought this game was won, and for me, I mean, listen, the warning signs were there even before this happened. But it was just more about when the moment was going to happen for me. And really the goal by Sam Bennett to tie the game. It was power play 2 who got it got it in. And we can talk about whether we thought that was goalie interference or not. At first, when they were showing the initial review, Sam Bennett pushed Charlie Coyle from the back into Jeremy Swayman. But honestly, even if he didn't push him, I don't think that Swayman would have had the positioning in order to make that save in the first place. But did it help? Yes, I could admit that the Panthers did have a little bit of a benefit there for the review. The TNT broadcast did discuss more about
if it was they ever called. Discuss how much they showed it like 10, 20 times. The play-by-play guy, color analysts were on it like over and over again, talking about whether they could have checked for the cross-checking penalty, but they can't because there was no call made on it, so you can't really review that. And they did everything they could to try and justify the decision, and the NHL did what they needed to do. They reviewed it. They said it was good, and I'm just sticking to that story and that story only.
So I assume that is not the moment where you thought the game was won for the Panthers, right?
Oh yeah, it was the moment where the game was won because it changed the perception of the game. You saw how much Jim Montgomery exploded and was just yelling, I don't know what, at the bench. You need John Boy Media to kind of read the lips there, but my goodness gracious, it was the moment. It was the moment that it left. It was 2-2. Suddenly, new hockey game, and the Bruins are now left trying to make it. It almost seemed like they were down already. It seemed like it was a goal to put the Panthers ahead. That's how the feeling in the building. The fans were kind of discombobulated. They were kind of out of it. They're already kind of pissed off because the Bruins or the Celtics lost the game to the Cavs. So like a lot of things are not going right for them right now. And now this, and then Barkov threads just beautiful weaves right through, and then puts in that third goal and keeping it in. By the way, keeping it from going offsides. And even then they were like, oh, that might be offsides. It's like, nope, Barkov was onside right the whole way, and he made it through. So, but that was the moment because the entire momentum shifted to the Panthers, and it seemed like they had a lead when they really didn't, but it just felt like they took the lead.
Yeah, and on that Barkov goal, a lot of reach of the stick there, and also credit to Barkov and his long reach too. To keep it in. I mean, that doesn't happen without that. And not enough body to knock Barkov off. I mean, he's a hard man to take down in the first place. So when he's weaving that way through the zone, like he is, that's going to be a hard shot to stop when he gets it to the blocker side of Jeremy Swayman there. So I mean, we've now seen the Barkov that we've always wanted to see as far as that offensive takeover of Barkov. We've always seen on the defensive side, but now we're seeing it on the offense way more. And just, I mean, how he has matured over the years too is just incredible, and just a pure example of that. And you said all they had was goonery, the Bruins. I think the only one who's allowed to have any goonery is Captain Goon. So that'll be a good opportunity for us to segue into segment number 3, where we're going to discuss more about what they're saying in the post-game availabilities, and maybe talk a little bit about history on Mother's Day, because it is Mother's Day. So we are going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors and passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers and roof racks, exhaust kits, and LED headlights, and more. Whatever you're into, speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car into the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Third and final segment here on this Monday, May 13th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Monday, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 3-2 regulation win over the Boston Bruins, a comeback win for them to take a 3-1 series lead over the Boston Bruins. And so it is Mother's Day, and we do have the historian here on the show. So I want to discuss maybe for like a minute or two about some of the historic Mother's Day events in sports, or maybe a few in South Florida sports. So one of the iconic Mother's Day sports moment is Marty St. Louis scoring a goal at Madison Square Garden in the playoffs 3 days after his mother passed. So a big iconic moment there too. And another moment that two other moments were actually in Major League Baseball. One of them being Dallas Braden's perfect game for the Oakland Athletics, #rooted in Oakland, and also Giancarlo Stanton against the Mets on a game-winning home run back when they were wearing those ugly orange jerseys. So any Mother's Day moments that you have that you want to talk about, Mr. Historian, since we do have you on the show, my friend?
Well, the Marlins actually won a game today, so that's
On Mother's Day.
That's a Mother's Day miracle in and of itself. So there you go. Giancarlo Stanton's home runs, obviously fantastic. Dallas Braden is the one that gets me, because there's a I forgot who did this, a fantastic YouTube video. I don't know if it was Stark Raving Sports or maybe one of the John Boys, but the story of Dallas Braden and why that moment was so amazing, so interesting. His story of how he grew up and his struggles with academics and growing up pretty poor in Stockton, California, and eventually, his mother passed away with cancer, and he's basically raised with his grandmother, and his perfect game and doing it in Oakland, not too far from where he grew up, with his grandmother there. And then just that's something that'll bring a tear to anybody's eye. So that's out of all the Mother's Day sporting moments, that's my favorite, just because of the entire story behind it. And I ask people out there, if you please go search for Dallas Braden and his story on YouTube. The video is fantastic. You'll get to know what he's like. and he's a great baseball personality out there, and the game needs a lot more people like him.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, a great Mother's Day moment, and with that, I want to say happy Mother's Day to everyone who is celebrating, who happens to be a mother or happen to spend time with them today. Mine was cut short today due to the game tonight, so thankfully I got to spend a little bit of the morning / early afternoon with him. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you saw me put an earphone into my ear, is because as Francisco was talking, I was looking up a tweet from what Jim Montgomery said in the post game for that call from on the challenge, and he was saying that he felt that Charlie Coyle, if he was upright, he was able to turn around and to backhand the puck out of the blue paint there if he had the opportunity. I'm not quite sure, because with how fast those shots go and to react, and with the peripherals of having the bucket with the visor, how are you able to see that play? I'd have to watch it one more time. But if you're really thinking about it based on what Jim Montgomery said, too, I don't know how you can be in proper position to properly clear that. I assume with you looking down, you're watching it, right?
I'm looking at what I posted, and I could put it up on the screen quickly if we could, but I don't see how Coyle would have been able to get his stick around, because he's up facing towards the net, and he's got his stick going forward this way, and for him to kind of backhand, Swayman's already in his way, so he wouldn't have been able to physically move it unless he lifts his stick over and does this, which by that point, I think Bennett would have potted it anyways. But whatever, that's what he says. I'm just sticking towards what the NHL already explained, as I said before.
Hey, we don't really have too much problems if it's in the favor of the Panthers. I mean, we could admit that. So Paul Maurice spoke on about Sam Reinhart, that Sam Reinhart was a bleeding bucket after getting hit by the puck, but he'll be fine for the next game.
I kind of felt that, because he got smacked right here in the face around here. He's probably bleeding, and it probably just was not clotting, and so they couldn't have him out there. So I don't think it didn't look like anything serious, because he skated off the ice pretty normally, but he went directly towards the tunnel after that. So, hopefully just kind of puts a few bags of ice on that, and he's ready for Game 5 in Sunrise.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's just a little knock. You hopefully get your necessary stitches that you need, and that helps you get back on track. So about Sam Bennett, also what he said about it is, quote, "I think I get a little extra juice, a little extra excited for these games. I enjoy every second of these games," close quote. And he also said, quote, "Coming into the third, our entire team had the belief that we were going to win this game. It was so positive in this locker room. We knew that we were getting that. It's just a matter of time." Something that, close quote, TNT broadcast said the same thing. They knew that they were pushing, having the territorial advantage for there. So they even had the confidence that they were going to get that next goal for them. So it was just about the patience level for the Panthers, and just trusting their game. And that's really the brand of hockey is and also something of note. Now it's a third straight game that the Florida Panthers have scored on the power play. They have 6 power play goals now in the series. I mean, there was something. Yeah, the penalty advantage for the Panthers is flipped on its not so ugly head, on its pretty head, however you say it, for in the Panthers' favor. But hey, I mean, you're winning the special teams battle for them too. I mean, you're getting that part of your game, and I mean, and everything is just rolling for this Panthers team in consistently getting in front of Swayman. I mean, 2 of the 3 goals were on the blue paint. I mean, average playoff game is around that 3-2 mark, 2-1 And look what happens when they in result of winning games, in winning a game like this. It's because they got into that blue paint, and it wasn't that Swayman gave up a bad goal too. I mean, because once again, Lundell's shot had Swayman screened. So I mean, it's a bit about in this series that the Panthers, when they have gotten their goals, it's been earned. It's not because Swayman is allowing them.
Yeah, and remember, Reinhart was out for a lot of that game. That's the number one power play scorer in the NHL. The Panthers did it without him.
And the thing is that the Florida Panthers, even before Reinhart was out due to injury, it was where they were getting their power play goals. It wasn't trying that same triangle play too, where you're getting it down low to Tkachuk and right back. And at first they were trying to do that, and they were taking that away too. But it's just about, I mentioned it on the last post-game show about whenever you have the Boston Bruins committing too much on the strong side, and then you get it to, for example, Tarasenko's goal. I mean, it's just everything about them is clicking. I mean, and then once again, to reiterate, the Panthers and their penalty kill going on the road, they let's not forget that they finished the regular season too, even though they gave up a power play goal on the night very quickly, 8 seconds into it. The Panthers, when it comes to winning faceoffs, key faceoffs, not necessarily the percentages, but and winning those battles and getting it clear up the ice too. I mean, it's been such a big recipe whenever you're denying them at the line, at the blue line, and also the support of having more than one Panthers sweater near them to bobble the puck, force an offside too. I mean, it's like running out of great things to say when the Panthers formula is consistently helping them win games, Francisco.
Yeah, it's great how even throughout the broadcast, the Panthers were just taking advantage of what the Bruins were giving them. Great zone entries and not giving the Bruins much of anything, especially in the neutral zone. Just playing that Panther style hockey because that's their style. That's what they do. And throughout the entire game, once the goonery had subsided from the Bruins and they had to play this hockey game, mano a mano, the Panthers were just like extremely focused and not letting anything get to them, and just like we're gonna execute this plan, and you guys just have to stop us. And the only thing that was gonna stop them was Jeremy Swayman. Even he couldn't stop it.
And I'll leave it with this: it's in the culture for the Panthers. Why they compose themselves, why they battle, and also the ability to change how they work the puck around on the power play. It's just, it all starts with that. And Panthers are one win away from getting back to their the Eastern Conference Final. And man, it's going to be a fun atmosphere, hopefully, from Emirates Bank Arena on Tuesday night. But we still have 48 hours right before that. But Francisco, I want to thank you for joining me once again on this post-game edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Florida Panthers win 3-2 over the Boston Bruins to take a 3-1 series lead, comeback edition for the Panthers. So tell everybody where they can follow you and your work online, my friend.
Yeah, so at FLA Cats History on X. I think it's Panthers History on TikTok as well. I'm posting highlights and stuff from what I'm capturing during the games as well. And FLA Panthers History on Instagram. And I also have Marlins History, but nobody wants to know about that right now. So just we're in the middle of this playoff run. Let's focus on some of the great things that the Panthers are doing right now.
Couldn't agree more with that. But anyways, thank you so much, and I will see you next time, my friend.
All right.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Francisco Oporta, and you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. where it's your team every day.